Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea. Film Spill, if you don't already know, is a podcast that comes out every week, and we talk about a movie by a female filmmaker every episode. We also discuss women in the entertainment industry in general, play summer party type games, spill entertainment gossip, and get to know each other and our guest. This week, we have a very special guest, Stella, who is a content researcher with Onyx. Stella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was just chatting with Chelsea before this and told her I'd always wanted to be on a film podcast because I love the Bechdel cast and discussions of film and media. So thanks for having me. I'm so excited. Yes, I am currently the content researcher with Onyx Films here in LA. Which basically means, so I have a theater background and I'm mostly an actor, but I also really enjoy dramaturgy and research. So I kind of wanted to translate that to film too. So that's why I'm doing content research with Onyx. So if anyone needs any kind of historical or literary research for anything, that's kind of what I do. I also was able to write and direct my first short film with Onyx last year. It's called Pauline and Her Sadie, which was an amazing opportunity. Like I said, my background's mostly theater. So I went to USC. I double majored in theater and law history and culture. And so I didn't really think I would be able to do more filmmaking kind of things, just because I didn't really do a lot of that during school. But Onyx has been a really great way to do that and meet people. So yeah, and it's led me to this podcast. So I'm super grateful. And it's so good to meet you, Chelsea.
Well, thank you again. I know I already thanked you once, but thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And that's interesting that you say that you have a theater background, because I also have a theater background. Nice. In school. That's all I did. And I gravitated towards film in college because I didn't even know that you could really get into production. I always thought oh, you're going to be an actress. You're just going to be doing in front of the screen. And then I realized once I got to college, I'm wouldn't it be great if I was well-rounded? And I got to learn the behind the scenes and what it is to be a producer, what it is to be a director and all that stuff. So how did you start seeking out production? What made you start gravitating towards that?
Yeah, so I mean, throughout college, I really kind of just thought I'm going to be an actor. Theater is my thing. I think it was just more of my comfort zone. I wanted to get more into film. I mean, not even just acting wise, but otherwise. But yeah, since I was a double major, and a minor, I had a musical theater minor too. So because of that, I just I didn't really get any film classes just because I didn't have room in my schedule. And in the School of Dramatic Arts, it was all acting technique classes, but and some of them were on camera, but most of them weren't. So yeah, I kind of just didn't have exposure to it. I was I don't really know how to get into this. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I really wanted to start doing. And I think maybe a lot of it was just I wanted to get over the imposter syndrome of oh, I can't really do filmmaking related things because I don't have experience and I'm going to look stupid or whatever. But through Onyx, I wrote and directed my first short film, and I was you know what? I totally can do this. Everything I've learned from drama school and from my peers totally applies to this too. And I need to just stop doubting myself. So I don't know. I think it was more just a mental block. But yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know what exactly I want to be, but I like that. I don't think anyone really knows exactly what their goals are. I am still trying to be an actor, but I also really loved directing and I want to do more of that. So yeah, I think it's just nice to be a part of a group of people who are open to trying new things and giving people an outlet for just doing things they've never done before.
Would you see yourself directing and acting and writing in your own short?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've thought about that. Yeah, so when I did my short film, so the short film I made, it was kind of based on real life experience. And at some point I was talking to some friends and they said, well, why don't you just play the part that's basically you? And I didn't want to do it then because it was my first directing experience. So I really wanted to just focus on the directing. I don't know. I think I can eventually see myself writing either writing and acting or directing and acting. I don't necessarily want to do all three at once. Like I feel like if there were to be a film where I wrote, directed, and starred in it, it would just be like a little bit too much. Not even just like taking it on, but I also really believe in giving someone else some creative control. I just think it would be more interesting if I like did two of the three and not three of the three, so that someone else could have like, I don't know, just some creative input on it. I think it would be more interesting that way. So yeah, I definitely want to keep experimenting with that, see what happens. And yeah, and I want to direct other people's work too. Yeah, I just want to do it all. Do it
I
all,
feel
but not all
that.
at once. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like like nowadays, it's all about like being well-rounded and doing everything.
Yeah.
Because like for
Yeah.
so long, there was like a stereotype that like you had to be good at one thing and then just
Yeah.
categorize yourself like that. And then I don't know, nowadays, like everyone just does everything, like especially in the social media realm, where you're like having your own podcast, you're doing
Mhm.
YouTube, you're doing like whatever it
Yeah.
is, more like brand sponsorships. But also when it comes to like film work, it's like you're seeing a lot of more female directors doing it all, like
Yeah.
producing,
Oh my
writing,
gosh, so much.
directing. Like Olivia Wilde, she just did Don't
Yes.
Worry Darling, and I didn't know she was going to act in her film. I was not
Yeah.
expecting her to be in it. But she does a lot of the time where she just stars in her own films and she'll write, direct it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, in the feature films and series like Insecure with Issa Rae writing and producing and starring in it. Yeah, I mean, so many people do it all. And I think that it makes projects really personal and just really fun and interesting. I love that people are doing that more.
And also like dedication for your project when you
Yes.
just want it to be done and you want to fulfill
Yeah.
that, because sometimes crewing up can be hard when you don't have a team or you don't have people that you
Yeah.
work
Oh my
with
God.
on a
Yeah.
regular. That's something I've been noticing now that I'm getting into like more of like the director role. It's like, all right, crewing up, who do I want to work with? Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's hard to work with people because they don't have that same determination or they don't have that same passion for your project as you do. And it's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
you're expecting every person that you encounter to have that sort of passion like you do, because it is your
Oh yeah, of
project.
course.
But there's some people who love doing it and will, have that same like work ethic for anything that comes their way. But what have you seen like directing your own shorts? Like how do you feel with that role and just like meeting other people and having people be part of your team?
I mean, I was just so scared to do it at first because, well, the short that I wrote and directed, it was just so personal and vulnerable, and I just felt so scared to do it. And I was pretty new to Onyx at the time, so I didn't really know a lot of the people that I ended up working with. But it was just such a good experience in combining people. So the person who starred in it, my friend Hannah Cruz, she starred, and she's a really close friend. So having her act as sort of my writing character was really good because her and I are both actors, and we both um, like have a lot of the same thoughts about acting and a lot of the same values as far as that goes. So it was really easy to communicate with her like what my vision was and what was happening. And because we're friends, like I just felt really comfortable giving that role to her with the subject matter and everything. And then a lot of the other people I worked with were people who I didn't know really well at the time, but they were just so understanding and so helpful. And they really, really just came through with, just like really like treating the material. Like you said, of course, not everyone's going to have the same passion for it or understanding of it because it's not their project. But they were just like so gentle with it, and they could tell that it meant a lot to me. So they treated it like with a lot of respect, and they had really great ideas. And yeah, like I think sometimes like you do have to put yourself out there with that. So it was just a great learning experience all around. And yeah, I really hope to get more experience with that. I need to get on that. But yeah, it was great. I got really lucky with that one.
Oh, I'm glad. That's good to hear. That's really nice to hear that everyone came together and like respected your project. Because, sometimes that doesn't always happen,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But no, and it's great because like Onyx does bring you like a great community of people. How did you find Onyx?
Yeah, so I found Onyx through my friend Britt Balthazar, who I went to USC with in drama school. We went to drama school together. The trauma of drama school brought us lots of great friendships. But I kept seeing her post about it, and I was like, wow, this looks like a really great group of people. So yeah, I applied, got in, and the rest is history. And it's just also so good because there are people I know, like Britt and a lot of other people from USC who I know who are in Onyx, and it's been really good to like continue my work with them after graduating. But then there's so many people from different schools that I didn't know before, and it's just been so good to work with everyone else. I think like at USC, fight on. Anyone else who went to USC, I think you can like relate that a lot of people at USC are maybe like a little like stuck in their ways, maybe a little bit pretentious at times. Not everyone, but a lot of people. So it's good to, so it's been really good to like work with different people. Because also USC, like it is a big school, but it gets small at a certain point with like the film students and drama students. So it's just been good to connect with different people.
Yeah, it is. Because, like, when you're stuck with the same people, you kind of
Yeah.
want to expand yourself and just like meet other
Mhm.
people. And finding communities like Onyx helps you do that because it brings communities from different areas together. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't know this many people in LA if I didn't find Onyx. Like, I would be completely oblivious and not know anything or not even have the people who back me up now. Like, I've been doing Onyx now for about 2 years. I don't know if that's like the same amount. I think you started
Oh, I
before I
guess
did.
oh my gosh, wait, I guess I have been in Onyx for 2 years. That's crazy.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Time flies.
Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting it's 2023, which means 2021 was 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, crazy. Yes. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that was it. Yeah, I joined my last semester of college.
Yeah, I did too. That's so
Nice. Yeah,
funny.
no, that was definitely a good time to join because then I'm like, okay, nice. I'll have a community of people who want to collaborate after I graduate. I won't just be like flailing.
Yeah, no, when you're about to graduate, you're like, okay, what am I doing next? Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna be in touch with these people anymore because you're not gonna see them on a regular. Like I didn't even have the campus experience, so like I wasn't like in person going to
Yeah,
college,
that's so true.
but I knew that I didn't have a community. So like when I
Mhm.
wanted to start making my own projects or just like meet people in film as well, this was like my only way to do it at the time. I mean, now I'm like, I still looking back, I feel like I wouldn't be where I am right now if it weren't for Onyx, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such shout out to Onyx. Shout out to Onyx. Such a good group of people.
Yes, yeah, it's been great. It's been great. And I hope that like we continue to grow.
I joined as marketing and outreach as a co-chair with someone else who was already doing it. And because that person had already been on Onyx, they were kind of doing everything. And with different projects, people already had their like kind of PR and marketing people. So I was like, wait, I'm not doing anything. So yeah, I did end up. And most of my involvement when I first joined was doing my film, which was part of also, I didn't mention this, it was part of the anthology based on her true story. So that was my involvement to start out. And then, yeah, after that, I realized, oh, wait, okay, this is probably not the right role for me. So that's why I told Jordan, oh, I think I want to be content researcher, which is just a role I made up based on my interests. And so that's been a much better fit. And it's also nice that we're in a community where we can kind of like switch around and see what works best for us, what the organization needs, and what we want to do. So that's been really good.
Exactly. Like you're able to just like try out different roles and see which one you
Yeah.
like or which one you prefer,
Hmm.
which has been great. Like I know I didn't even think I was going to want to direct. I was like, no, I'm just going to be a producer. Potentially, maybe I'll write occasionally. Like I still barely write, but like, just occasionally there. And editing, I thought I was going to leave it too. Editing is like just revolves around my life at this point, so I can't leave it. And then directing just like slid right into my DMs, was just like, hey, just try this out and see if you like it. And also
Directing
because
slid into your DMs. I love that.
and like I was directing for kids a lot when I was working as a
Aw.
teacher. I was working for as a teacher for a little bit.
Oh my
Um
gosh.
and
So
I was like, if I
sweet.
can direct kids, then I can direct adults.
Oh
So
my
there's
God.
that.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yay. Today we're going to talk about Sophie Hyde's sex drama film, Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, 2022. But first, we are going to play our slumber party type game.
Yes.
So I wanted to call this like truth or truth, but I was like, that sounds boring. So instead, I wanted to call this game Spilling the Tea.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate.
Yeah. If it's something that you can't think of, let me know.
Okay.
And we can always skip it. Let's get right into it. Okay. So number one, what is your biggest fear?
Probably fire. When I was little, I went to a hibachi place and the fire kind of blew right in my face, and I've been afraid of fire ever since. So I guess that's like not great because I live in Southern California where there are fires all the time, but I'm gonna go with that one. And then I also just I hate spiders and scorpions and that kind of stuff too. Um, and then as far as like more psychological biggest fear, I guess failure. I don't know.
I feel like mine are similar, like not gonna lie.
Nice.
My biggest fear, well, it's not the fire. Um, but I mean, fire can be scary. But I would say that like my biggest fear when it comes to like creatures are definitely spiders or snakes.
Ooh, yeah. Not a fan of snakes either.
Like I
I
can't even hold
haven't
one.
really seen snakes, so maybe that's why I'm not as afraid of them. But yeah, oof.
Yeah,
Spiders,
they
yeah,
just
spiders get me.
yeah, spiders get me too. Like I really don't like spiders. And then like when it comes to like something psychological or something like internal, I think failure for sure. Because I feel like that's always in the back of my mind. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
try not to think about it because like that's so cliche, like not cliche, like
It is a little cliche.
disappointing,
Well,
but
it's also
like
just it also can just mean so much. Like failure does, there's so many types of failure, unfortunately.
exactly. And like we're all in like different parts of our lives. So like that could
Oh
mean
yeah.
like a variety of things that like we could feel like we could fail at, you know? Imposter syndrome plays a big factor in that as well. It's like
Oh my God,
feeling like you're
yeah.
not good enough to accomplish a certain career goal or
Yeah.
task.
Especially with being in film and theater and just anything artistic, there are so many people who grew up like either in the industry or like kind of adjacent to the industry, or there are people who like got a lot of training and experience and like I don't know about you, but like I started like in like high school and then college. Like I don't know, I did, theater in high school, but then I didn't take a real acting class or like do anything like interesting or like really like legit until college. And so going into that, I was like, oh my God, I'm like the least experienced person here, which I wasn't, but it's scary. It's really scary. So yeah, I think being in entertainment, there's just a lot of that. Probably anyone we would ask what their biggest fear is who is in film would say failure too.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like for when I was younger, I put myself in everything. Like I personally signed myself up to be in singing lessons. I did dance. I did
Same.
acting. And because I thought that I needed to be like everyone else and get the
Mhm.
training that everyone else was getting. But the thing
Yeah.
about that is that like my family didn't have the money to afford me being in
Oh
all
my
these
gosh.
classes.
Same, same. That
So
okay, exactly the same situation here.
yeah, so I felt like I was losing out when everyone else was progressing because they did have the money and they could take the classes. Let's do the next question
Yes.
because
Oh my
we're
gosh, we could go
spilling
on
all
all
the
day with
tea.
this one. Yeah.
Okay, number two. What is the most embarrassing thing you've ever done?
Ooh. Okay, I'm trying to think what is the most like I've done different types of embarrassing things for sure. I would say that most of my top embarrassing moments all happened in one night in college. So it was my junior year in college, and I was on this retreat for this theater extracurricular group that I was in called Impulse Theater Company. Shout out. And the people in there, I mean, luckily the people who are in that group are just really nice. And I like, I know they're not actually judging me for embarrassing myself, but like at the same time, I really did. Um, so we were at Lake Arrowhead, which is it's probably like an hour away from LA. And we were just like drinking, having a good time. And because of the altitude, since we were in the mountains, we got drunker a lot faster. And at the time, I was like, I am a lightweight with drinking, but at the same time, like, I also just was not really used to drinking. I didn't drink until I was a junior in college, because the first 2 years, I just like, I don't know, I just didn't really feel like it. And so, like, I was just like, I wasn't used to drinking, and then the altitude just like kind of fucked me up a little bit. And so I got way too drunk, and then I I did a lot of embarrassing things this night is the moral of the story. And I'll list them now. So first of all, speaking of musical theater, I drunkenly danced to Out Tonight from Rent, which I don't remember doing, but I can imagine it was really cringy and embarrassing. So there's that. And then I also, okay, there was this guy who I really liked. This guy who was in the theater company. We were friends, but I'd had a crush on him, and I like drunkenly confessed my crush on him. So there was that. And then, like we did kiss a little bit, but I was sloppy because I was drunk. And then I was just like, okay, I think I'm gonna go to bed now. And then like I tried to like find my room that I was supposed to be staying in, and I was like just really drunk and disoriented. And so then I like yelled up to the room that I had just come from, and I was like, wait, where am I going? Where am I going? I don't know where I am. And I started like freaking out, and I was just being way too loud. So yeah, it was just, yeah, it was just a weird night. And that is the night that I did several embarrassing things. So there's that. How about you?
At least you can blame it that you were drinking.
True.
Like blame it on the alcohol.
Blame it on the alcohol, blame it on the fact that I just like was not used to drinking at all. Yeah.
I did the same thing though. Like I didn't start drinking until like I was in my 20s where like literally I was about to turn 21 and I just moved to the city. So
Mhm.
there was like happy hour signs all the time. And I would
Oh,
just go
yeah,
in and I
yeah.
would just get drunk.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, whatever. I had a
It's easy
long
to
day
get
at
drunk in
work.
New York. There's a lot of drinking. I mean, there's a lot of drinking in college, but New York I've just found like is a very like drinky city, so that makes sense.
It really is. Like legitimately. There is just that's how I just got sucked into it where I was drinking for a good chunk of like my early 20s from like
Mhm.
20 to my like 23. I was like
Mhm.
blacking out drunk, going
Oh
to restaurants by myself, meeting random people,
gosh.
like not
I
knowing what
haven't done
happened.
that.
Well, let's go to number 3.
Yes.
What's a secret you've never told anyone? Now, it doesn't have to be, really like personal, but it can be just something that's like nonchalant.
Interesting. This one, okay, this one's tough because I feel like any secret I have, I've told at least one person. And then anything that I haven't told someone is something that I don't necessarily view as a secret. It's more just I don't feel the need to tell anyone. I don't know if I have one for this one. Wait, do you have one?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I tell people everything a little too much. I'm like
Yeah,
so
same.
like straightforward a lot of the time
Yeah,
where I'm just like, I don't even care anymore. I'll just say it how it is.
yeah.
But I think there's like strengths and weaknesses to that because yeah, some people don't want to hear it. Let's see, a bit I'm like, I didn't even think about these questions beforehand. Maybe a secret I've never told anyone. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I do. I do believe that I struggled with alcohol, not to the extent where I was an alcoholic or you could diagnose me like that,
Mhm.
but I do feel like I use that as, I guess, like as an emotional support. And I felt
Yeah.
like I needed to do that to be a better person around
Mhm.
certain people, to
Yeah.
be more outgoing and to be so like
Yeah.
flamboyant with my actions. And
Mhm.
that was my excuse was, oh, I was drunk. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have like one like kind of on the flip side of that. Just because, yeah, I mean, addiction and alcoholism and just like relying on things as a crutch is definitely something that affects everyone to some extent. I think, yeah, yeah, I have one similar to that. I like this is not I guess this isn't a secret I've never told anyone, but it's something I haven't told many people, which is that like the main reason I didn't drink. This is so funny. All of our questions are connecting. The main reason I didn't drink when I was in early college is because my dad is a recovering alcoholic, and I think because of that, I just like what I told myself was, okay, well, he's an alcoholic and that's gross and he's treated us shitty because of that, so I just like don't even want to associate with that. And yeah, I mean, I guess the more secret part of that is like, in a way, I was afraid, like, oh, well, because I'm related to him, and I don't know, because of, just the way that addiction runs in families. Like, I guess I was afraid that if I like started drinking at all, even socially, that maybe I'd also struggle with alcohol. So yeah, I mean, that was something I was really afraid of that I guess I haven't really shared with anyone. But Yeah, I mean, it's just such a spectrum. Addiction looks so many different ways, and like sometimes it's more harmful to you, and sometimes it's more harmful to other people. And yeah, I don't know, but it is good. I do think it's like a good thing for you to admit like when you think you're like drinking too much or relying on it for certain reasons. Because like me, like I've never considered myself someone who relies on alcohol, but yeah, I do have to think like, what is my view of myself? Like, am I viewing myself more positively when I'm drinking? Like, what is that? I don't know. I guess there are just a lot of ways you have to be conscious of how you're thinking about yourself and your personality and how fun you are and all of that when you're drinking versus when you're not.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I needed to come into realization was that like I don't need alcohol to be fun or outgoing or to
Yeah,
like be in certain settings.
we are spilling the friggin' tea. We are getting real with this tea.
Yes, exactly. The whole point of that. Safe,
Yeah.
safe room.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, number 4. What is your biggest fantasy?
Ooh. My biggest fantasy is being able to be a working actor and not have to have a day job. I think that's it. And you know what? Maybe I'll achieve it one day. We'll see. So that's it. Just, being able to make money doing what I love, I guess, is my biggest fantasy. How about you?
Same.
Yeah.
Pure hustle and bustling. That's where I am right now. At like this point in my life, like I want to focus so much on just making my dreams happen because I feel like I'm gonna be in my 30s in the next like 4 years, and
Oh,
I
really?
don't want
Wait,
to be in
wait.
my 30s.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm still in my early 20s, but I feel like there's so much existentialism around being in your 20s. It's too much sometimes.
I know, and people are like, don't put an age to it, and I completely understand that, get it, but I just don't want more time passing where I'm not doing anything to be where I want to
Yeah.
be, you
Yeah.
know?
I know what you
So that's
mean.
my fantasy. I do want to get paid to either run this podcast or to direct shorts, to
Yeah.
direct television. Like for sure, I want to do that.
Yeah, and that can definitely happen for either of us. So we just gotta keep on going, keep doing what we're doing.
Yes, mark our word. This
Yes.
is today, February 12th,
Yes.
2023.
Yes.
We
Super
have
Bowl
predicted our future.
2023. Yeah.
Exactly. Number 5.
Ooh.
When was the last time you cried?
I cry a lot generally, so this one isn't hard to think of. I okay, the last time I cried was 2 days ago when I was in therapy because therapy be making you cry.
It's
So there's
true.
that. Yeah. How
Oh,
about
that's
you?
awesome though that you are going to therapy.
Yeah, I
I
love
love
therapy.
that.
It's life
Yeah, me
changing.
too.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone who can afford to be in therapy should definitely be in therapy, even if you don't think there's something wrong with you. Well, you don't. Not that anyone has anything wrong with them. There's just, just life just throws a lot of stuff at you, and you have to talk about it with a professional so that you don't put the burden of talking about it on everyone else in your life.
Exactly. And there's just some things that it's just better to talk to it with a stranger rather than someone who
Yeah,
knows you. Because, like, someone who knows
yeah,
you just, and it's not that they're telling you things that you want to hear,
yeah.
but
But like they
it
can
just,
tend to do that more.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, you want to just a different perspective on things. Honestly,
Oh
I was
yeah.
doing BetterHelp for a little bit. I want to
Mhm.
definitely get back into therapy, but highly recommend. It was like a life changer. Like, having someone
Yeah.
else tell you things in a different way, like I said, in a different perspective, like really opens your eyes and just like the way that you think about things that like you
Yeah,
never
it's
would have
amazing.
known another way if someone else didn't tell you that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it really helps you see the patterns in your life because sometimes there's something that's happening in your love life that like reminds you of something that's happening in a friendship or something that relates to something that happened in your family. Like it all connects. Like it's really interesting for someone to just see you as a whole person and like view you as that person, but also like they have expertise, they know how to make the connections and figure out why you're thinking the way you are and yeah, it's just you can't really get that anywhere else.
Exactly. So if you guys want to look up any therapy, BetterHelp is I mean, we're not sponsored by BetterHelp. We should be.
I was gonna say, a lot of podcasts are sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp Film Spill is your next sponsorship.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me know. Hit me up. filmspillpod@gmail.com.
Yes.
All right. Well, that concludes our slumber party type game. That was fun.
That was so much fun. I am so glad that we like went in depth with that.
Yeah, me too. It was a great combo. I learned a lot about you.
Yeah. Oh, those are the best. Those are the best. Yes.
Yes, this is like our little icebreaker too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Thanks again for having me. I love that we did the little slumber party game so that it isn't just hello, nice to meet you. Now let's get into the film conversation. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. When you're talking to new people who you don't like, just people you don't really know, when you're talking to them, whether it's in a class setting or something like that, about art and media, like if you don't know them really well, there can be the tendency to like kind of just like flex or not say what you really think, or I don't know, just not say what you would normally want to say. So I'm glad that we did our little icebreaker.
Exactly. Like feel open, feel free. Like
Yes.
we are here for the convos. And
We're not just analyzing film, we're dishing about the film. We are just saying our unfiltered thoughts about this amazing film.
exactly. Love it. I love that comparison. Because honestly,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when I did come up with the title for Film Spill. I'm like, well, you're spilling the tea about film. If you can't tell, I like the motto spilling tea.
Oh yeah, it's
So
great. It's a great motto.
I always like the little Kermit emoji, like that, like the
Oh my
gift.
gosh, the Kermit sipping tea. Yeah, I have a sticker of that on my
I love it so much.
It's
This is
the best.
perfect.
Best.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to get right into the film. Today, like I stated before, we're going to be talking about Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, which is available to watch on Hulu. This discussion will contain spoilers for the film, so if you haven't already seen it, go watch and come back afterwards to hear our thoughts.
Yes, go watch. It's so good. You will not regret it.
Tell me, why did you choose this film for us to discuss today?
Okay, yes. So I saw this film for the first time really just like a month ago. It's pretty new. It came out last year. And I just loved it so much. And when I was looking through the films to potentially discuss today, I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much to say about this because it is just such a different kind of film than a lot of the other ones I was thinking, and a lot of them that are popular right now. And also, it did come out so recently, and I just haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, even though it really is an amazing, interesting film. And I love films that are really frank in discussing sexuality, and especially a movie that's primarily about an older woman and her sexuality and her self confidence. And you just don't really see that a lot. So that's the main reason I picked it. Emma Thompson, who's an amazing actress, does a great job in this film, and it just, yeah, everything about it is just, I just really love this film. So,
Well, Stella told us a little bit about what it's all about primarily. So it was pretty interesting that the premise of this film happens all really in one location, which is the hotel room.
yeah.
And so Stella will give us a little synopsis about
Oh,
what the
okay,
film's about.
okay. Okay, wait. So yes, it is the premise of the film is that there's an older woman played by Emma Thompson, and her husband has died a few years ago, and she's decided that she wants to take a risk and hire a male sex worker to just kind of help her let loose. She's never had an orgasm before because her husband was, not very giving in bed. But yeah, anyway, the whole name thing. So she plays a woman who calls herself Nancy, and then the sex worker who she hires, his name is, well, his it's not his real name, but his professional name is Leo Grande. And this is about them and their discussions and their journey, and it's just really interesting. Yeah, and they're the main two characters in the film. There are a few other side characters, but it's mostly just them.
Yeah, the movie mainly focuses on the dialogue, and that's what I found interesting because there's not that many movies like that. I've been
Mhm.
watching a lot more that do all happen like in one location and that really just focus on the dialogue and the story
Yeah.
behind each characters. But this, like you were saying before, this was a film that you don't typically see. You don't typically see an elderly woman exploring her sexuality because she didn't have a fulfilled sex life and she wants to
Yeah.
fulfill this. And these are like, you're at this point of your life where you're trying to get things done that you weren't able to do earlier in
Mhm.
life. Like this is
Yeah.
like if you had like a month left to live type thing, what would you
Yeah.
do? And she was fulfilling
Yeah.
her like list of things. And it was a lot of like basic stuff that I feel like as a kid or as like a teenager, well, as a kid, hopefully you're not doing this as a kid, but like in your
As a
teenage
younger person, yeah.
yeah, the younger person, you are exploring this type of part of like your
Mhm.
sexuality. You're like, I mean, nowadays too, and watching television shows, like they're pretty graphic. Like I feel like
Yeah.
kids are now more advanced than before when it comes to sexuality and just like sexual stuff.
Mhm.
But it was interesting to see like that she was so dedicated to him all these years that she wasn't able to explore other avenues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, I mean, something I really love about this film and just the way it treats the whole situation is that it's definitely like yes, it is about an older woman exploring her sexuality and having sex with a younger man and discovering what she likes and, accepting that about herself. But that being said, like, it's very much like this is definitely not like a popcorn 50 Shades of Grey, like, that it's definitely not that kind of tone. Like it's definitely not like a romance novel kind of film. It treats the subject with a lot of respect, which is that she's an older woman and she's never had an orgasm, and that I don't know. I just think it's so interesting and important that it does view that topic as like something that is important, and it's not just like some kind like it views having a fulfilling sex life as something that is really important to your well-being and your growth rather than just like a little treat or something like more, I don't know, more trite, I guess. Like if you use that as something that is important and that people deserve to explore, like it isn't just like a bonus to have a fulfilling sex life either with another person or by yourself. Like it is something that that the film kind of discusses as something that like people should be able to have. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And also that it wasn't just about her exploring her sexuality, but it was
Yeah.
also them exploring each other and their
Oh yeah.
lives and understanding one another. Like she wanted to know more about him, even though he like
Yeah.
became defensive and didn't want her to know anything about
Yeah.
him, which is like
Yeah.
it makes sense. It's like when you're doing that type of work, you don't want your clients to know your life. Like, you're hoping
Yeah.
to stay
No,
anonymous.
yeah. That was such an interesting aspect of it too. So the film is broken down into the three different, well, I guess four toward the end, but yeah, it's the four different sessions where she books Leo as a sex worker for the night. Um, and they pretty much all take place in the same hotel room. They do go to a cafe and talk at some point, but yeah, the majority of the film takes place in the same room. And yeah, I definitely noticed the trajectory of that. Like, I think session one was about her getting over her fear of having sex and like getting rid of the judgment that she's having for even booking him as a sex worker. And then two was a little bit more in depth about that. And yeah, like three was a lot more about him setting boundaries and him like, I don't know, them talking about the limits of like, okay, what are the ethics of this? Like, what are you allowed to know about me? What is just for me? All of that. Yeah, because they do get to know each other really personally, and they do like really inspire each other and make each other think about different things. But yeah, like I think it's really interesting that like you see more of his point of view in that session, and then the fourth session is them kind of making amends and she has her first orgasm, which is exciting. So, yeah, no, it explores a lot. It's definitely not even just about the exploration of sexuality. It's about their relationship and things they have in common that they are like projecting onto each other a little bit, or just a lot of stuff. It's so good. It's so good. It's just so well written.
Let's talk about her first orgasm real quick.
Yes.
So this was interesting, right? I was
Yeah.
not expecting this. So she ends up giving herself her own orgasm and not
Yeah.
relying on Leo to do that for her.
Mm-hmm.
Plot twist, right?
Plot
Which I
twist.
think
Yes.
also goes hand in hand with you don't need another person to fulfill your needs, right? Like
Yeah.
I like a deeper message there. or also like you don't need a man to fulfill your orgasm type thing. Like
Yeah.
it was just like female dominance of your own body.
Yeah, and just like loving yourself and enjoying your body and accepting what you want and accepting what makes you feel good, that kind of thing. Yeah, and I mean, in that fourth session, it makes sense why she decides that's the last time they should meet, and she says, the words of the title of the film, "Good luck to you, Leo Grande," because she does discover like she is enough for herself, and yeah, I think that's ultimately what all their conversations and explorations were leading to, which is really great.
And the final scene is pretty touching when she's looking at herself in the mirror completely naked. And you're
Yeah,
not used to seeing an elderly woman be bare naked and looking at
yeah.
herself. And she's
Mhm.
feeling herself and she's feeling beautiful. She's feeling empowered again. Like
I
she,
love that. I love
yeah.
that scene so much. It like almost brought me to tears. Yeah, you never see women loving themselves on film like that, especially in a way that's so vulnerable and in a way that like doesn't objectify them. Um, yeah, it's just so interesting. Yeah, basically the final shot of the movie is her looking at herself naked in the mirror, and she smiles to herself because she finally does view herself as beautiful and powerful. And it just, oh, I love it so much. The more, I don't know, it's just a feeling that everyone should be able to have, and just something that yeah, and like just like even just seeing an elderly woman, or I guess I wouldn't call Emma Thompson elderly, but like an older woman on screen, in a way that's like sexy and liberated but not objectifying them. It's just, you never see that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I feel like this movie stood out to me. I was not expecting it. I didn't even hear about it. I did see it on Hulu being like
Mhm.
promoted on there, but
Yeah.
there wasn't any ads or like nothing on social
Yeah,
media really.
it really wasn't. Oh my gosh, which is a whole other thing. This is like, I do have kind of a bone to pick with like whoever marketed this movie, because yeah, I don't really know anyone who's seen this movie, but it did come out last year, pretty recently, and it's such a good film, and it didn't really get any awards buzz, which really surprises me. Yeah, I think Emma Thompson got nominated for Best Actress for, I think it was either the Critics' Choice or Golden Globes or something like that, but she didn't get Best Actress nominated for the Oscars, which I was super surprised by. Both the main actors in this film, I thought, should have gotten nominated, and they didn't, so that was weird to me. But yeah, because their performances are incredible.
I mean, have you looked at the Oscar nominations for this year?
I have, yeah.
I was pretty disappointed
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I felt pretty neutral about the nominations, but like the only thing that I was really upset that this movie didn't get nominated really at all. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, especially because it is so character heavy. I mean, it's two characters essentially the whole time. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Exactly. Like, how can you keep that interesting in a story? And that's why the screenplay is so important, is you're not just diving into what's surrounding the characters, right? What's going
Yeah,
on around them, like people who are interacting with them, who are creating like cause and effect. Like, no, this whole story is happening in one place. And so how are you going to drive the story? What are you going to do? What's the whole purpose of this story? Like there has to you have to go deeper into each
yeah.
character, and that's why
And it goes
those
so deep.
conversations happen, is because it's made to have a purpose as to why each character is doing what they're doing at this current time of their lives, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like
Oh my
that
God. Yeah.
plays into effect with us as people. Like, why do we do certain things at this point of our lives, right? But we should also be able to talk about it and also be able to see these types of things. And that's why this movie was an eye opener. Like, oh, that is something that could happen, right? That is something that does
Yeah.
happen. And we don't really see it. And so
No, not
what
at
else in
all.
our lives happen on a daily, right? Or like happen in people's lives in general on a daily, but aren't talked about, or like that we don't really like see in film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really such a different kind of film for both the main characters, because Nancy, like we talked about, is an older woman who wants to explore her sexuality. You never see that. And then Leo is a male sex worker, which you also don't really see a lot unless it's, something like Magic Mike, where where it's a cash grab, where they're being objectified. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but like they're just never, I've just never seen anything where there's a character who's a male sex worker, especially, who's really explored in depth and taken seriously. And yeah, so it is just a very different kind of film. They're both going through journeys that you don't really see a lot on screen. Um, and yeah, they're also just two characters that you wouldn't expect to have such a connection or teach each other so much, but they do. And it's great to see. And because it's such a almost such a commonplace situation, I don't know, you just wouldn't think that that much self-exploration and that much self-discovery could happen between two people in these kind of circumstances, but they do.
Yeah, exactly. And also the fact that this film was like filmed in London
Mhm.
and in like London, England. So they had accents, right? And there was different types of like slangs that are used
Yeah,
that we don't typically
I
use
love
in like the
that.
American
Yeah.
language. And I know I love that too, because you're like, oh, I would say it like this, or like that's how you actually
Yeah.
say it. So it's neat to see those different like terminologies for things.
Yeah, and especially just because I think the I think a common misconception about British people is that they're like more proper, that they are more conservative. And that's definitely not the case with this. Yeah, I guess something else about that is I don't know if this is I don't know if this has to do with Emma Thompson's character Nancy's upbringing in Britain, or if it's just more of a like just society at large's expectations of women. But yeah, like she was talking about how she used to be a religious educator. Nancy used to be a religious educator, and now she's doing like the last thing you'd expect that person to do, which is hiring a sex worker to teach her about the ways she can explore her body. Um, and yeah, I don't know. There's something about like I think being not even just being an educator, being in religion, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think in Britain, especially, even maybe more so than America, there are these like social expectations of, having the right manners, and these are the things we talk about, these are the things we don't. And of course, all of that is happening in America too, like to a large extent. But I don't know. Like I think that is kind of a layer on top of it that I didn't even think about.
Yeah, no, you're right. As an actress, could you see yourself doing sex scenes for television or film?
Yeah, I think so. It really depends on I think it would depend on if the sex scene was gratuitous or not, and how it was treated. I don't know. I feel like most sex scenes are a little bit like they're either gratuitous or unrealistic. And so those ones, it kind of depends on the project. If it was a project I was really passionate about, I would. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that actors are becoming more open now about saying like Sydney Sweeney on Euphoria. I know that there were some scenes where she was supposed to be um, topless, and she told Sam like, "Oh, I don't think I should be topless here. It's not really necessary." I don't know. I think it depends if I had an open dialogue with the director or writer in that way, which it seems like people are more open to now. Um, so yeah, I guess it really just depends. How about you?
I just couldn't personally do it just because one, I'm not even comfortable with my body. If I
Oh,
was for sure, but like I'm not.
it is
And
hard, and like you
two,
definitely shouldn't have to if you don't want to.
and like there are millions of people looking at you naked. Like that's your body, so
Oh
there's
my
no
God.
hiding it. It's out in the world. Like Sydney Sweeney, back to like Sydney Sweeney, she got a lot of like backlash. And I don't know if you heard this, but she was getting like harassed. Her people were sending her nudes to her family, and like she had to speak on behalf of that and like tell
So
people to
disgusting.
stop. Yeah, exactly. So like I mean, her family has seen her naked, obviously, because they've seen her
Yeah.
work. So, like, that's another thing. It's
Yeah,
like,
but still, like,
I
wow,
don't
oh,
know.
God, people do not know how to have boundaries with artists. Like, come on, just because they're naked on screen doesn't mean they are like inviting you to send your nudes over. That's ridiculous. Yeah, and Emma Thompson kind of had the opposite problem. So, like, someone who's like young and beautiful, like Sydney Sweeney, and Emma Thompson is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but someone like her, like, she's facing just like insane objectification and harassment based on being nude on screen when she is like viewed as a sex symbol, like against her will, basically. And then Emma Thompson, on the other hand, she was terrified of getting naked for the film just because she thought, oh my God, people don't want to see an older woman naked on screen. Um, yeah, and like she was really brave to do that just because people have so much judgment for older women's bodies. Um, and yeah, like I think older women like are allowed to be sexual in media, and like there's just nothing gross or weird about it.
I think that us as humans need to start normalizing the fact that like that we all have bodies, right? We all have different
Yeah.
bodies, and like we haven't normalized it enough. Like I feel like in the early 200s, we were like early 200s, early
200s
2000s.
in the
I
200s, yeah.
know in the BCs.
Yeah.
um, we like shamed sex. Like sex was so bad, and
Mhm.
now I think we're starting to get to a point where we're seeing it a lot more in film and television, where we need to like normalize it that like sex happens, and sex happens at an earlier age than people think that it happens. Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
later.
like,
And later.
and later, to each its own. But that like we should all be like, embrace our bodies, embrace
Mhm.
people's bodies, and just like find normalization in seeing other people's bodies. But I
Yeah.
think that because it's not normalized, that people see it in a different way.
Yeah, it's so weird. And I mean, that is something that Emma Thompson's character Nancy talks about. She talks about, I mean, when her and Leo first meet, he walks in and he says, "Oh, that perfume is so lovely. What is it?" And she says, "Oh, it's Coco Chanel." And he says, "Very sexy." And she's kind of taken aback and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were going to say sexy for your age. Like, I'm always used to the for your age after any compliment." And that is something that keeps coming up because during the first session, she's so stressed about like showing him her body and even doing it just for so many different reasons. But she keeps asking like, well, what if, like, I don't know, like, are you going to have to pop a pill? Are you even going to find me attractive? Are you going to be repulsed by my body? And she's so surprised when he says no. Like, there's always something to fancy with my clients, and you're not an exception. And yeah, I just thought that was so cool too. Like, it doesn't view him having sex with her as like, oh wow, poor you, you have to have sex with an older woman. Like he views it as something that's sexy and normal. So yeah, I mean it really does a lot in that way. And I think this is something that a lot of people should watch.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something that I noticed too. Like he doesn't make her feel less than what she is, right? He
Yeah.
embraces her, and he wants to fulfill her goals. Like, and
Hmm.
there's some moments where you're feeling that awkwardness, like when
Yeah.
she wants to give him his like her first ever blowjob. Like she's never
Oh yeah.
given a blowjob before. And she keeps like going back and forth. Is she gonna do it? She's not gonna do it. And then when she finally decides to do it, he wasn't awkward about it. He was like, go for it. Like,
Yeah, and you
it's
see him
my
enjoying, and you see this shot of his face like kind of enjoying it too. So yeah, yeah. I mean, it just does so much in that way of showing that older women can be sexy and really be in touch with themselves in that way, and that young people aren't like always repulsed by it, and they shouldn't be. So yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know she does. She does on that topic. Yeah, she does a lot of sexual things for the first time because, like we said, her husband had died a couple years before, and basically she explains to Leo, yeah, like for 30 years it's always been the same. My husband would rub my shoulders a little bit and then get on top, do it, and then put his pajamas on and go to bed without a word. um, and I mean, I mean, I feel like a lot of people probably have relationships like that, and that's another thing, like what you were saying earlier about how what she has and hasn't done like might be viewed as like inexperience by more young sexually liberated standards, just because you're like, oh yeah, like I've tried that before, I've done that before. But she hasn't, because she was with a man who was sexually selfish and really stunted her in that way. And because she was such a rule follower, like she just didn't feel like she had the right to say anything or ask for what she wanted. um, and the one time that she describes the story of how when she was a teenager she had this sexual encounter with someone at the hotel, at a hotel she was staying at on vacation, and she remembers that with such vivid detail. I think that's so interesting. Like like that's something that happened to her when she was a teenager, like years ago. It was a one-time encounter with someone she never talked to again, but she remembers it with so much detail because like it was actually like, sexy to her and she like hasn't had that. Um and so yeah, I mean, I would imagine that there are a lot of women, older or even younger women who have been in kind of repressed situations who can relate to this.
Yeah, and it makes you feel for her. Like I felt so sorry for her that she had a partner who didn't want to fulfill her needs, who didn't even seek that that was important, that she
Yeah.
deserved pleasure as well. So it goes to show that like, those things that you have to pay attention in a partner may start fading over time, where people don't do the same things anymore and like that's why it's so important to like they say quote unquote keep the love alive, do things
Yeah.
for each other because
I
like
mean,
both of you
yeah.
guys
I mean, what's so
matter.
interesting about her situation is it sounds like based on what she said, that was how it was the whole time. Like he never made an effort.
I felt for her, like I felt bad that he wasn't attentive to her and that I felt like she deserved this time, like she deserved to go like have her needs met and to find, even if it was a sex worker, like people think that like finding a sex worker is so belittling, but he even goes to show and he like talks about some of his other clients and what he's there for. Like he isn't just there for sex, like sometimes it's just company or just to like
Yeah.
be there or just to fulfill someone's need for that short amount of time. And I didn't even think she was gonna keep hiring because she was like, "You're expensive. I can only do this like one other time," and it was like two more times. I'm like, "Damn, how much is he?"
I mean, I'm sure he was a lot. He is a very handsome guy.
He
Very
is.
handsome and a very handsome and very sweet guy. So I could see why he charges a lot because he's definitely like you get what you pay for. Like he's definitely worth it. Like he makes her feel. I mean, that's what's so nice too is like he makes her feel so comfortable, and he really, really helps her like feel like it's okay to ask for what she needs. And I mean, that's how he really helps her grow. And if he does that, if he did that with her, I'm sure that's what he does for his other clients too, which is a service worth paying for. Absolutely.
How did you feel about the end when they depart and she says that this is going to be the final service because
Yeah.
she fulfills her needs finally?
Yeah, I thought that made a lot of sense because before the last time they met, the second to last time they met, when she was kind of violating his boundaries because she had found out his real name on the internet, and she was asking just like too many personal questions and going a little bit too far. And then when she apologizes to him in the fourth session, she says, "In a way, I like wanted it to be real, and I overstepped, and I'm really sorry." Um, and yeah, that was just an interesting thing to go into as well. So I think it made sense why she said like, okay, I guess this will be the last because they connected, they did a lot of things that made her feel sexually ready to do more. And so I think because like she also because she wanted it to be real and she knows that it isn't and that she can't, overstep her boundaries. Like I think it makes sense why she said, okay, I think this should be last. This is great. You've taught me a lot. And now she can use her newfound confidence that he gave her to explore maybe like more intimate relationships with other people who she meets in real life or dates or otherwise. So I thought that made a lot of sense.
I felt like they were growing into an actual relationship.
That was hard to tell. That was hard to tell. And I don't know, at first I wanted them to get together for real, but then I realized, no, I think it makes sense that they could learn from each other without going there and that he could keep going. Yeah, I don't know. I think it could have gone either way. Like I would have been happy if they got together or the outcome, which is that they didn't. I don't know. Either way, like it just, I do think it is a very beautiful idea that someone in your life for a brief time could like have that impact on you and it doesn't necessarily have to keep going. I don't know. Yeah, I think it could have, I would have been happy either way.
It's true, but it's so sad to think about that. Like, when something good is like in your life, right? And
Hmm.
then it's time to finally let go or for
Yeah,
it to end. And you're like, well, that was a nice ride, right? But
yeah,
you also have that like little piece of you or that like little part of you that hopes that it would have continued, that like maybe it could have been more than what it was.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah, and I mean, she even what was it that she said the last? She said something to him in their last talk about. She says, "You're the only adventure I've ever had." I mean, throughout the film, we see a lot of her spiraling and a lot of her hesitance to hire him and keep hiring him and do things with him is because like she does have such an internalized sense of shame for hiring a sex worker and doing anything that's kind of like not societally accepted as like the right thing to do. But she really gets over that, and she does say something along the lines of like, "You are the only adventure I've ever had." In that, like, she's always followed the rules. She was a religious education teacher. This is like the opposite of everything like she thought she would be doing. Um, and I get why, I get why if someone says like you're the only adventure I've ever had, like it would be more conducive to their growth if they didn't rely on that person anymore. Like I think like she just really needs to explore it herself, and she's learned from Leo and she's gained confidence from him, but like she doesn't want to rely on it, I guess, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, like she doesn't want to rely on him.
Yeah.
She wants to continue learning and growing on her own with the
Yeah.
time that she has left in her life.
Yeah.
It's such a great film. It really is.
I
It's
know.
lengthy for sure, and you really do have to keep up with it. Like you have to pay attention to the dialogue. Like that's what
Oh
this
yeah.
film is about.
Yes, I personally love dialogue heavy films. I think maybe it's the theater in me. I love character studies and dialogue heavy films. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do think that it really works. I don't know, because that's something I was thinking about too. I was just like, oh, this would have made a really good play too. But I get why it was a film because one, just the accessibility of like other people should see this, like a lot of different people should be able to see the story, but also the visual elements really help it too. Like the score is so good, and then the visual of just like being in the same hotel room and I don't know. I guess like it's better for film too, just because then like the sex acts don't have to like be in real time necessarily. Um, so yeah, it definitely. I mean, it is a relatively short film. It's like an hour and a half, but you do have to pay attention. But I love a short and punchy film. So
Yeah, and like hopefully this film encourages others to start talking about this and to
yes,
start making films like this. Cause we need more of this. Like literally this is the only film that I've ever watched that has this type of topic where
yeah,
it's explored that women of all ages can enjoy sexual pleasure.
yes, yeah, and that it's something that people Nancy and Leo even have like it's kind of a joke, but they have this conversation where they say, or she calls him, I don't remember what she calls him exactly, but she calls him like a sexual saint or something like that. And she says something along the lines of, wow, this should be a public service. And he says, yeah, I mean, the world would probably be a lot better that way. Like if people embraced pleasure and made it a priority, people would be a lot nicer to one another. Um, so that's just a fun little tidbit from the film too. And yeah, I mean, it is. It really, really is. It's definitely not something to deprioritize, I guess. And a lot of women do. A lot of women do because they feel like they shouldn't ask for, excuse me, they feel like they shouldn't ask for what they want or like it's not important. And, because she feels so much responsibility as a mother and otherwise, like she feels like, okay, I got to put my pleasure on the back burner and focus on this other stuff when it shouldn't be that way in reality.
Exactly. We deserve pleasure. Everyone deserves pleasure. And that
Yes.
shouldn't be shamed either. Like we're all sexually driven, right? We all have desires.
Yeah.
So why not go for it? And I
Uh,
think that you shouldn't hold back. Like if you feel like you're not getting pleasured, there's something wrong.
yeah. Yeah. Like you should be able to ask for what you want and go after it. And she feels, I mean, in the first session especially, she feels so much shame about hiring a sex worker. She goes through this entire spiral that lasts such a long time before they even do anything because she's not even just that she's nervous, is that she feels like, oh my God, am I like just a total pervert for hiring you? Like this was a bad idea. She tells him at one point, you can leave. It's okay. I'll just pay for you anyway, but you can leave. Um, and he encourages her to not feel that shame anymore.
Yeah, I know that's what's so great about him. I think his character helped her build that confidence that it was
Oh yeah.
okay. And that also that what he's doing is what he values as his type of employment.
Yeah, he
That he
really,
doesn't
yeah,
see any
he
shame
sees
in
it
it.
as a service. Yeah, he's like, this is
Yeah.
a service I provide, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, like he's like this is what my body does. Like I hope you feel that pleasure. Like it's just it was so weird to think about it so differently, but I'm
No,
like it
it's so
makes
different.
sense, right?
Oh yeah. Also, just that, okay, yeah, my last thing that I want to really applaud this film for is that it does show more of the psychology of, how people feel nervous about sex or awkward about it. And it's not even just all the internalized shame and internalized, like, misogyny that, like, she has about herself and about how she feels ashamed to be an older woman with the desires that she has. But also, I mean, I think it's very real about showing that sex is like not a linear process and that it does take a certain level of comfortability to go into and that people do need different things and that it isn't always a seamless process. Like I feel like in films in particular, especially those that a lot of people see, sex scenes are just so they're just not really realistic because if you it is shown that people are nervous about having sex, it's usually a younger person who is afraid to have sex for the first time or something like that, which is just seen as more palatable to audiences, especially male audiences, because they like get some kind of like, I don't know, they get some kind of pleasure out of that, and it's less for the story and more just to like cater to audiences at that point. But then also, I don't know, sex scenes in movies and TV especially, I don't know, like they're just like too they go too easily in a way. Like you don't really see the awkwardness, you don't see the nervousness. And like I said, if you do, it's usually like not super nuanced. It's kind of just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go for this like perfect tumble where we don't have any questions and we're not nervous about anything. And you see this like big exaggerated orgasm, and everything's great. Like I don't know, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in sex scenes, it's always just a given that like they're going to mutually orgasm and everything's going to go perfectly when that's just not how sex is. So I love that in this movie you see all the thought behind it, but then even in the sex scene at some point she says like, oh, can we switch around to this, I'm not sure if I like this, or oh, I can't like bend like that, I just can't do that. You see them switching around, you see like little dialogue exchanges, and you just don't really see that in sex scenes usually like they don't say a word and they just go for it, and it's this like steamy passionate moment, and then you see them cuddling in bed. But it's just, yeah, it's just not how it is. Like it just goes so much differently than that most of the time, so I really like that too.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, all right, we all know that it's fake because of just
Yeah,
like how intense it can be sometimes,
yeah, it's too
Like
intense, it's too perfect, like that's just not how it is.
especially when people are getting thrown on the wall. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about all
Yeah,
that.
no, in so many different scenarios, it goes slower and different than that. And at some point you see, like some points you see them having sex, or he's going down on her and then they take a break to talk and then they go back into it, or they don't. And before she has her first orgasm, they have sex and she enjoys it, but she still doesn't orgasm, which is a thing that happens very, very commonly. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just thought the way that it portrayed like the progression of sex was just more realistic and just inviting of that.
Yeah, and especially under like the circumstance that they were in.
Oh yeah.
It was gradual. Like she wasn't
Yeah,
like, okay, after day one, I feel comfortable with you and get ready for this. It took her time.
it
And then
definitely
when they
did. Yeah.
finally got there, it was a process, that would
Yeah.
actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that also with the way that this was portrayed, which I'm sure is because because they had a female director. The framing was just never it was never objectifying to either of them. Um, it didn't, it didn't sexualize either of them in like an overtly objectifying way. It really just showed it realistically, but at the same time, like it showed, yeah, like when it showed him, like you barely really saw anything of him. Like you see his butt at some point, but there's definitely nothing like too graphic with him. And then you see some shots of his face, experiencing pleasure and things like that. But again, nothing really exaggerated. And then with her, like you see her laughing and smiling, and she does look beautiful. Like Emma Thompson is so beautiful, and like you can tell like her character is genuinely like letting go and enjoying herself, which is a beautiful thing to see. But it doesn't do so in a way that, objectifies her or like views her as like a cougar or a MILF or something like that. Like it just shows like a real woman experiencing real pleasure or whatever it is she's feeling. And at the end, when it shows her nude, like it doesn't like pan up or do anything male gazy. It's just like a full body shot of her looking at herself in the mirror. And it just looks at her in like a very neutral way, which I think is kind of hard to achieve. So I really like that a lot too.
Yeah, you don't see those types of shots often. The last time I saw that type of shot was just recently because I watched The Diary of a Teenage Girl,
Oh, I
and
haven't seen
there's a
that.
shot there. Really good film. You should definitely watch it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna put it on my list.
But similar take where she's in front of the mirror and she's bare naked. And I mean, the camera's on there for a while, right? Where we're just focusing on her body. But like, that's such a hard thing to do, is to
Yes.
like stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself naked, just in general. Like, just like, that's when you're like, I feel like most vulnerable, is
Yeah.
you staring at yourself and you're staring at your quote unquote what you may see as imperfections, or maybe like you see them as beauty. Like we all see ourselves differently. So like that is such also an important message as well, that like we all just have these thoughts about our bodies that are just like, it's so hard to just grasp that idea how vulnerable we are with ourselves and
Yeah.
our bodies, in yeah, just as a whole.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing to capture, and I think this film does it really beautifully and in a way that doesn't, yeah, that just it's just real. It's not, yeah, I don't know. It's there's just so many different ways it could have gone that wouldn't have worked as well, and they they really did that in a way
Yeah.
that, I just think a lot of people will really resonate with.
Well, this is definitely going to be a film that I recommend to people to watch for sure,
Yes.
especially like who doesn't have Hulu. Like we all have Hulu, right?
Right. Yes. Go watch this film. It was
Go watch
severely
this film.
snubbed. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So we'll do the marketing for them
Yeah. Okay.
a year later, but we'll still do it.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our time here at Film Spill Pond. Thank you so much again for coming on. It was such a pleasure to talk to you about this film. More than welcome to come back whenever you'd like
Oh
to
my
talk
gosh, I
about
would love
another
to.
film.
I would love to. And I want to hang out when you move to LA. So,
Let's do it.
yes. Okay. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. All are at Film Spill Pod. Tell a friend about the podcast if you like, and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. That will help other people find Film Spill too. Special thanks to Onyx Films for promoting us. You can check out Onyx's other projects at onyx-films.com. And then Stella, if you'd like to plug in your socials where we could follow you and maybe potential projects coming up.
Yeah, thank you. So my social media is I mostly use Instagram. So that's Stella Emilia, Emilia with an E. So STELLAEMELIA at Stella Emilia. And you can also see on there I have a link tree that has my short film on it, Pauline and her Sadie. And I don't have anything coming up at the moment, but when I do, you'll be able to see it on there. So give me a follow. This has been great. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Until next time, don't cry over spilled film. Film, 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 film.